Hello and welcome to the At Sea podcast. I'm your host, Justin McRoberts, and I'm also my very own guest. After a number of years of interviewing lots of wonderful folks who are doing lots of work in wonderful places, the intent of this podcast has continued to be the same, but has shifted. Originally, the At Sea podcast was an attempt to find people who are working in areas that helped clarify your journey so that you could listen to voices speaking on things that they were doing that helped you make sense of the waters that you were navigating. This stretch of time, this season, I suppose, of the podcast, I'm trying to do that more directly by taking questions from you and then addressing those questions with whatever wisdom and narrative I can actually bring to the table to help clarify the specific things you are wrestling with and the specific waters you are navigating. A lot of this have to do with art and faith and religious practice and leadership. And so once a week, usually on Instagram, I will post a Q&A, and you get to throw questions at me, and I do my best to be helpful. So I hope this is also helpful. I'm going to kick it off with this question, this lingering question that comes back over and over and over again, which I love, and I love this question for that very reason. It has to do with the nature of art and the nature of spirituality and the nature of religion. Tiny little topics, just small conversation. Is all art spiritual art? Or is religious art more spiritual? The three operative terms in here I'm going to hang out on so that I'm going to answer the question by digging into the terms as I understand them. I really like and come back to Seth Godin's definition of art, that art is anything I create that forges a connection between people, which is to say art doesn't always have to be something that's recognized as like a painting or a poem or a book. That art is anything I create that forges a connection between people. Art is a way that I address and express the human need to connect. One of the persons I desire to connect with is me. That is a spiritual practice, to connect with myself. That's a psychological process, it's an emotional process, but it is a spiritual process. I'll come back to it spiritual in a second. I'm trying to connect with myself. I'm also, I believe, I'm also wanting to connect with God. I want to connect with the divine, and art is a way we connect with ourselves, with the divine, and with the world around us. We do that with food. We do that with podcasts. We do that with the households that we build. We do it with the neighborhoods we curate. Art is anything we create that facilitates or forges a connection between persons. Hold that in your mind while I talk about what I see as the nature of spirituality. Spirituality is not, as I understand it, like this aspect of life. In other words, spirituality is not like something that's on the other side of some doorway that like I can pass through, or like it's not like another dimension to life, and that there's like the everyday practical material world, and then there's the spiritual world. I don't buy that. I also don't buy the idea that spirituality is somehow something that happens, how should I say this, like just in my mind. The way I understand spirituality is to think spiritually, to be spiritual, is to believe that God, the divine, is paying attention to, has concern for, and a connection with every aspect of human life, from our finances to our bodies to our relationships. That the way Abraham Kuyper writes it, and I love this quote that I'm borrowing from my friends in the CCO, is that there's not one square inch in all the human experience over which Christ does not cry and mine. There's not one square inch in all the human experience over which Christ does not cry and mine. It all is something, every aspect, every inch of it is something that God is is paying attention to, cares about, and is present to. I think that is spirituality. Hold that now for a moment. So let's talk about religion. We've talked about art. We've talked about spirituality. I'm going to talk a little bit about the word religion, or the idea of religion. Bad religion, I want to stop short of saying there are two kinds of religion in the world, good and bad. Bad religion is the attempt to sell you and I on a product that if I buy that product, I now have access to the divine. If I buy that product, I can have access to the connectedness I long for. That's bad religion. Bad religion, it makes a product or tries to sell us on a product that gets us access to the things that our hearts actually desire, which is a connection with the divine and a connection with ourselves and a connection with one another. And you start to see the bridge here I'm forming between what art is, what spirituality is, and what religion is. Good religion actually helps us recognize the existing connection between ourselves and ourselves, between ourselves and the people around us, and between ourselves and God. That is good religion. Good religion sets us free and trains us to recognize the existing connections in our lives so that we can find some peace in knowing that our lives are already held together by a divine source that cares about us and cares about every square inch of our lives. That is good religion, which brings us all the way back to the beginning. And this is why I think art and religion aren't exactly the same thing, but are without question like twins, maybe twin sisters in some way. There's certain differences for sure, but the DNA is very, very, very similar, if not almost identical. The desire that you and I have that brings us to the threshold of making art is the same desire that brings folks to the threshold of developing religions, of developing religious practices. We want to connect with ourselves, we want to connect with one another, and we want to connect with the divine. Because at our core, we are spiritual beings, which is not to say that at our core there's some sort of ghost in there, and then when we die, that ghost gets to escape and fly to heaven. To be spiritual beings, that we are beings who know somewhere in the core of us that the divine is paying attention to and has concern for every square inch of our lives. So, is all art spiritual? Yes. Is religious art more spiritual? No, but I would suggest that there's a whole lot of art that would not want to consider itself religious because it doesn't want to put itself in that market. But it is religious insofar as there's an intention on that artist's part, or in that artist's drive to connect with themselves, connect with you, and connect with the divine. That's a wildly complex answer up to a certain point, but I hope that's somewhat helpful. So that's the first question. And that comes, like I said, it comes up a whole lot, and I don't mind coming back to that, not just because I think I've got an answer all the time, but because the more I come back to that reflection or come back to that question, the more I get to dig into something that really matters to me, and I'm learning as I go. So, second one, and then I'm probably going to wrap this up because I don't like making these podcasts too long because you have stuff to do, and I'm just trying to be helpful. This question comes up a bunch, and I love this. What's been giving you hope lately? So the way I answer this on Instagram is I said that seeing people spend less time in spaces, like in noisy online spaces, so they can get back to their friends, their projects, and their hobbies. And I actually mean that. So one of the things that's been giving me hope lately is watching people and talking to people who are spending less time online. They're spending less time on Instagram. They're spending less time on TikTok. They're spending less time with these things in their faces, and becoming disillusioned with this stuff and desiring to connect with one another again. That's giving me some hope. I also want to say a couple of things about the nature of hope and the practice of hope. One of the issues I have, one of the things that the question draws out of me is, what has been giving you hope lately? I hope. What I want to be true is that hope becomes a decision I make, that I choose to hope, and that I'm not dependent on something external giving me hope. When things get dark, especially early in life, I look externally to see if there's something else. I'm looking around and I don't like these things. The world is not going the way I want it to go, and that's making me feel hopeless, or I am feeling hopeless in light of that. And so I'm looking, this question, what else out here can I look at? I'm looking for things that will give me a sense of hope. Over the course of time and training and practice, what I've come to believe, and I think is true, is that hope is a decision I make, not just to look elsewhere for something that's positive, but to actively believe that there's a positive outcome, which is to say that hope comes with work. Where do I really actually experience the most hope is that I'm still up to stuff. I experience hope because regardless of what's happening in the world around me or how disillusioned, disappointed I am in what's going on, I'm still at work, and I'm still going to get after the things that I care about. My source of hope as I get older, I hope and believe and work, it comes from in here. And it's a decision I make to work at the life I'm in, to work at the world that I'm given to, regardless of my circumstances. So I get it. I get that we're looking for things in the world that give us an inspiration when other things in the world, maybe a lot of things in the world, are feeling sad. Over the course of time, there are fewer and fewer of those places of light outside of us. And hopefully that disappointment turns us inward, where we get to make the decision, I don't like what's going on around me. I'm going to work at making this square inch of my life a better place. I think that's actual hope. So nothing really over the course of time is giving me hope. I'm choosing it. I'm working at it. And the fact that I've still got breath in my lungs and can apply myself and the best of my skills and my talents to the world around me, that's what I want hope to look. That's how I want hope to look. That's what I want hope to look like. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the At Sea podcast. If you're liking what we're up to here, we'd love to have you on the team. You can go to patreon.com/Justin McRoberts, that's me, and support this work. We'd love to have you on the team. Until next time,